Good morning, Kyle. How are you?
Yo, Anwar, it's I feel like smoking a cigar with that music. I got the blazer for it. Feeling dapper as we kind of turn the page to week 2, man. Thank you very much for having me here. Excited to talk about Alabama and Texas.
Well, first of all, I am glad that you enjoy the music. It puts a smile on most people's face because it catches them off guard. But in the old-fashioned kind of speakeasy kind of mantra, we have to have the speakeasy lounge and kind of to speak easy. That's a play on words, if you can kind of get that. So go ahead and do that. By the way, I'm gonna let you know something, Kyle. I'm gonna let you. People gave you a hard time the
Good.
last time we spoke at the SEC media days. And here's the reason why. It's pronounced Anwar and
Anwar.
not Anwar. And so they were like, tell this man how to pronounce your name. Tell him how to do it. And I was like, I can't interrupt the interview. So I don't want them to give you a hard time this time. So I'm going to save you from that. Kyle, talk to me. Talk to me. You saw Bama versus Middle Tennessee State over the weekend. We'll get into obviously the headliner, which of course is Jalen. But give me your kind of opening thoughts. Were you able to gather anything from a game like that? Like, what did you walk away thinking when it was all said and done?
Well, Anwar, I appreciate it, and thanks for everybody watching inside the comment box. I did notice that because I did watch the feedback, and I appreciate it. And Benji, what's up, man? Boo this man, yeah. I appreciate it. I'm sure there's going to be some boos this coming weekend from both sides. Look, you guys played Rice, Alabama played Middle Tennessee, and I think there were takeaways in that game clearly. I mean, it is what it was, and there's going to be a different caliber this coming weekend with Texas and Alabama playing in the college football early season Super Bowl. That game wasn't with it last night with LSU and Florida State. I'm never going to drink the Florida State Kool-Aid until the season is actually over. I'm just not buying it. Same thing with Notre Dame. With Alabama, we wanted to see a deep ball presence from Jalen Milroe, who takes over for the number 1 pick in college football in the NFL, and Bryce Young. We wanted to see the wide receivers catch the football, which was something that they didn't do all during fall camp. We wanted to see open field tackling. We saw that. We wanted to see a little bit of pass rush. It was tough for Alabama to get a pass rush on Middle because they got the football out so quick. So there were certain check marks that we wanted to see within that game against Middle, and I get it. It's not the highest caliber opponent, but for what it was, we did see some good signs. There's a couple things that we're still waiting to see going into week 2, but Jalen Milroe, he came out and he came with it against Middle. And I have the stats right here. I mean, he threw for 194 yards. He had 3 deep touchdowns. His NFL passing rating for passes over 25 yards were pretty much on point, perfect. And, the first touchdown was just incredible. I'm sure you guys have seen it. The ball is missnapped. He has to make a play, and he turns into, the best athlete on the field. And more than likely, he's going to be the best athlete on the field come again this Saturday. That's just how talented he is. 6'2", 230 pounds, running 4.4, if not faster. So he presents a lot of challenges, but in terms of what we learned from his deep ball, because people were like, can this guy throw a football over 20 yards and be successful? And he comes out, he does it 45 yards, 41 yard, 29 yard in the air off really good designs from new offensive play coordinator Tommy Rees, and a couple of years ago, Steve Sarkisian, one of the best to do it here at Alabama from the OC standpoint. But there were some things we learned for sure, and most stems from Jalen Milroe, because that was a huge question mark going in, was who is going to be the quarterback? Is the quarterback going to be successful? And in terms of who they played, he was successful in week 1.
The thing is, what we talked about is you predicted that, when you and I spoke this summer, you predicted Jalen would be the starter, even though there was a lot of game playing going on by Saban, and obviously Saban kind of does it, but 48 hours or so before the game, it kind of becomes kind of an official thing. So in your mind, the goal in week 1 is really to go out and dominate the opponent that you're against. And again, no one's showing a lot of different things, but did you see enough from him to feel like, okay, in week 2, even when there may be some ups and downs in the Texas game, he's going to still be the guy, Saban will stick with him the entire time. That's his guy? Or is that kind of hard to really ascertain from, just what, basically playing against Middle Tennessee State?
Um, yeah, well, that's kind of what we're waiting to see. And Coach Saban has said that he wants to see consistency from Jalen Milroe, from the quarterback room overall. And I don't think that one game is, consistent enough. I think we need to get through a couple weeks, and the bullets are going to start flying very fast against Texas. And you need to see that consistency, and who is going to be able to lead this offense and be consistent and have that high performance level of play against a top caliber team like Texas, or throughout the remaining season. Now, Tyler Buckner, he did get in, so did Ty Simpson. Tyler Buckner, as you know, he transferred in from Notre Dame. He was likely going to be the backup under Sam Hartman. He comes over here. He's the backup as of today under Jalen Milroe. He has a lot of athleticism. He throws a good ball. And what was surprising was everybody expected Ty Simpson to be the number 2 quarterback. I kind of even felt that after fall camp. So it was surprising to see Buckner at the number 2 quarterback position. Look, Coach Saban is not about playing guys just to play them. He plays the best player, period. So don't think that just going in, he's prideful enough just to keep one guy in. That's not enough from him. He needs to see that consistency. He'll pull you out. He'll put the best player in, whether that's a freshman, whether that's someone else on the team that can do a better job. Coach Saban's ultimate job is to win football games. He doesn't care about this or that, and that was, the whole depth chart thing. We didn't get a depth chart. That was the first time that Coach Saban has ever coached here that he didn't release a depth chart until the actual game day when he had to. I think the strategy with that is the transfer portal kind of containment, but also look, that I think it's a genius play. Like in life, in work, whether you're outside of football and you're in a business, like you just don't have a job to have a job. Like if you want to perform at a higher level, if you want to move to, above Dwight Schrute, the assistant regional manager, like you got to put it in the work, right? And to continue to climb the ladder. So a week by week kind of depth chart is great for Alabama. Plus, like, as you know, at Texas, this isn't high school football. There's not 11 on offense and 11 defense. Like there's so many different packages. For example, like if you looked at the depth chart from a goal line perspective, you're like, oh, the receivers aren't starters. No, if you look at the dime package case from on the defensive side of their base package, like there's different starters. Alabama can go 17, 18 deep on the offensive side. Same thing on the defensive side of the ball. So a depth chart, people don't see it like it's like etched in stone for what it is. But, these offenses and defenses have so much talent that sometimes it doesn't necessarily make sense. Like you would have to have a depth chart for like their base, their nickel, their star package, their dime package, whatever. But overall, I mean, this team, they did what they had to do in Middle Tennessee, and I think same thing for Texas and Rice. Like it took a little bit of time until like the late second quarter into the third for Alabama to really like go heavy, because it was like 14-3 or whatever for a little bit. People were like, they might have been talking a little bit, and then Alabama kind of blew it out.
Yeah. So, Kyle, give me an understanding because I want to know more about the defensive line, that front for Alabama. The offensive line for Texas struggled. I know you had Catch on your show yesterday. I don't know if that came up in conversation, but the offensive line for Texas was struggling. I think that was a little bit of a surprise for most Texas fans because, Kyle, we get the whole, all right, you're not going to show everything kind of thing, but you still have to be able to execute. And so from an execution standpoint, they struggled, especially on the right side of the line, at the guard position. But the tackles were fine. The interior was a little bit, problematic. And that had Texas fans worried. I think Rice had 8 quarterback hits, I believe, at some point, or quarterback hurries or something to that effect. They also had 2 sacks. And so I'm kind of curious. Give me an idea of that defensive line, that front for Alabama and what they're bringing.
Yeah, so you have Jaheim Otis. He's your big plug. He's a defensive tackle. When he first showed up to Alabama, I'm not kidding you, I think he's like 6'3", but I think he was like 390 pounds. Completely out of shape. He wasn't, it was going to take a lot of transformation. I think today he's down to like 330. So he's done a really good job to get down to a position to where he can play fourth quarters. They also have Tim Keenan, kind of a similar body transformation. He's probably floating up at like 330 or something like that. Those are your plugs inside. And those guys aren't necessarily going to put heat on the quarterback, but, they're going to be plugs that can stuff up the middle. Now, in terms of edge rushers on the outside, you have Dallas Turner, who all Texas fans know. One of the best in college football, definitely a top 10 pick, and not too far behind William Anderson in terms of the talent, which is crazy to think, but this is Alabama. This is the level. This is the standard. So he's going to be coming with it, and he's absolutely excellent. On the opposite side of him, you have Chris Broswell, who's a former 5-star, and you have Quindarius Robinson. And from what I saw from those guys early against Middle Tennessee, and again, like Middle, they got the football out immediately. Like there was no the quarterback didn't even sit back there for 2 seconds. Like he got it and he tossed it. With that said, Alabama was able to get a little bit of pressure. So Rob's going to come off. He's very effective. He comes in over the defensive tackles on stunts. He's very good, very athletic, long arms. And then you also have Deontay Lawson, who's an inside linebacker who can get pressure up the middle of the field. This is a very physical, very athletic group of linebackers. Their defensive line is pretty athletic. They're built more to stop the run, but the linebackers, outside linebackers, are going to get pressure. They're super athletic. They're going to be really challenging for not only Texas, but for everybody in college football to deal with. We didn't see, a ton of quarterback pressures or whatever this past week because it was an air raid style, get the ball out quickly, but they certainly have enough talent there 100% to get to the quarterback.
Kyle Henderson from Bama football. You can find him on YouTube. The best, honestly, probably the best site that covers a college football team that I can think of. So definitely check him out. Always lots of great content that's out there. Big picture for a second. We'll go back to the smaller picture. But one of the things I think about is, Kyle, there's always going to be the storyline of the mentor versus the protege.
Yeah.
Nick Saban doesn't really lose a lot to his proteges, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may have the record in front of you, but that's not something that happens a lot. Is this a game that gets Nick more fired up than most just because he knows that he's got another one of his guys kind of coming from the crown?
Not necessarily. Coach Saban has a tremendous amount of respect for Sarkisian. I mean, 100%. And that's just not coach talk. Like, I honestly think he does. I mean, when I was, I've been covering the team for quite some time, and Coach Sarkisian is the only coach to act as the, active head coach when Nick Saban had COVID during 2020. It was interesting to see another coach kind of walk the field, come out of the tunnel, and do everything with the team. Sark did a great job here at Alabama, and I really like how Sark rebuilt himself from USC to Atlanta, back to Alabama, and then to Texas. But I don't think Coach Saban thinks about, this is a former assistant. I mean, there's former assistants everywhere under Coach Saban. It isn't just another game to him. It's a week by week basis, and he focuses more on his team rather than the opponent, which is interesting to think about. But he knows he has the players on both sides of the ball, but it's getting them to rise up to the challenge of playing at your peak performance. But I don't think, just because he's playing against Sark or, Kirby Smart down the road or whoever, it adds a little bit more flair. I think they have more respect for the overall opponent. But it's more about, keeping things within their lines and, taking care of business from Alabama's standpoint. For example, one of the things he always talks about is having the right psychological disposition when you're out on the field. Do you really need to get a jump to beat your opposing player? Do you really need to get a pass interference because you can't keep up with that player? So the penalties last year, as were played a really big, part of Alabama versus Texas. And Alabama was penalty plagued last year in the games that they lost against LSU and against Tennessee. Against Middle Tennessee, Alabama only had 2 penalties in that game, which was another huge point of emphasis for Alabama.
Obviously, Texas travels to a place where they don't see a lot of losses in Tuscaloosa. That 21 straight victories. The last time a loss happened on that home field, it just happened to be against, I don't know, one of the best teams in college football history with Joe Burrow and LSU. So, I mean, it's not. And then before that, I think prior to that was Johnny Manziel or something crazy to that effect. So yes, but they lose to Heisman Trophy winners. That's pretty much it. So, is it simply just, okay, it's the talent? Or is there something else in the water when teams go to Tuscaloosa that make it just a lot hard, just a difficult place to play?
It's not an overly difficult place to play, honestly, because of the fans are so accustomed to winning. This is the first year that I've been covering the team that people are more amplified into the game. Like they're excited to see what happens because I think in the back of their minds too, they're like, is this team a normal Alabama team? I think when Alabama went to Austin, Austin was unbelievable. And I think that environment made it very challenging for Alabama. Like, look at the offsides penalties or encroachment from William Anderson. Like, those affected the team. Alabama wants Bryant-Denny Stadium to rise up, to get loud. It can get loud. In 2019 or whenever, when Joe Burrow came in with that team, that was unbelievable. And it did get really challenging for LSU to play, but that offense was unbelievable. And you're right. You almost, those quarterbacks played at such a high level. That LSU team was unbelievable. I think we talked about that last time that we're at SEC Media Days. It's not, I mean, it will get.
Everybody got drafted off that team.
Everybody. There's 15 guys or whatever.
Yeah.
But what makes it, look, it's the players more than the overall atmosphere. Now, the atmosphere will be amplified, this weekend because everybody has, kind of their heads towards this game. But it's the players and how they execute. And, this team is capable, but they're not proven by any means. I mean, they're good, but they're still unproven. They're untested. There's a lot of players with limited game experience. But it's really Nick Saban and the adjustments. And we were happy with what we saw from Tommy Rees and Kevin Still, who's our new defensive coordinator, but they're still unproven. The talent's clearly there. And we're waiting for a couple injury updates today that we'll have around 12:30 p.m. when Coach Saban speaks. Malachi Moore, who's a starting star player, huge piece of the secondary, and then also Jalen Key, who's a transfer in from UAB. Each of those guys were banged up on Saturday. We do not have official updates on them from Coach Saban. Also, Kool-Aid, JaQuincy McKinstry took a targeting late in the game. He's a punt returner. He's fine. Talked to him after the game. He's good to go. And then Emmanuel Henderson, who is a sophomore wide receiver, kind of in that second fold. He was out in crutches. Overall, this team is pretty healthy going into this next matchup. But let's say Jalen Key and Malachi Moore are both out in the secondary. That is going to play a huge role in this game.
When we think about last year's game, Kyle, it's interesting because I think from a Texas perspective, the whole what could have been, it is the belief. It's almost like it's the one that got away because you got to sometimes have a little bit of luck. And there were some things that happened, luckily for Alabama. Like, I mean, Quinn Ewers gets hurt early in that game. The backup comes in, he gets hurt at that game, and they're just limping towards the end from a quarterback perspective. But the defense plays extremely well. There's a field goal that's a short field goal that ends up being missed, and again that ends up being like, my gosh, like that kicker usually makes it, but here it is, like a 20-yard field goal. That thing ends up getting missed. There clearly was a safety in the end zone that was not called. Like Bryce Young did not get rid of that ball. His knee was down, Kyle, and then that should have been a safety. That one obviously doesn't happen. And of course, Bryce Young pulls the Houdini act at the end. He escapes a tackle. That's all on him. Gets the first down and more, and then they're able to kind of seal the game from there. Are you expecting kind of a close battle again with these two teams, especially based off of last year? But like I said, from my perspective, Alabama got really fortunate.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That was a crazy play by Bryce. I mean, those photos of him where he's like upside down throwing it, you're like, how did this happen? Yeah, I'm expecting a close game for sure. I think, Vegas doesn't miss, although they did miss TCU in Colorado, right?
Big.
Coach Prime came with it. I think it's going to be close. I think, I was talking with Ketch yesterday, and he was talking about, that Ewers wasn't effective throwing the deep ball. He still is an effective quarterback. And I do like the fact that they motion so much out of the backfield. I think it presents a lot of challenges considering the amount of talent that Texas has on the offensive side of the ball. Kind of almost reminds me, I mean, not as high caliber as like Kyle Shanahan for the 49ers, but there's a lot of things going on in the backfield that you have to be accountable for. Really high on your tight end. I think he's probably a little bit undervalued, and people don't know about him as much as they should, but he's phenomenal. And, Alabama's secondary is certainly going to be challenged. And I think Alabama certainly has to get heat on the quarterback once again, not only as they did last year, but in this game as well. I think it will be close. And I think that Jalen Milroe has a ton to still prove. This was middle, and people were like, okay, you're supposed to do that against middle. So he has to do it in another game, week 2, which presents a lot of challenges. Getting to him, I think, will be tougher than people realize, because Alabama's pass rush was good despite their Pro Football Focus grades, which were, by the way, horrible. I don't think there was like, no, Pro Football Focus was mad at Alabama's offensive line. Look, the pass pro was good. Jalen Milroe was sacked one time, and that was basically a running back missing a block. But Alabama's offensive line, which is like the biggest offensive line ever or whatever, right? They're like 6'5", 350 across the board. They didn't get a great push off. Like, Alabama didn't do an effective job with their running game. They had, 7 different running backs or whatever. A couple of them were quarterbacks, but they ran everybody. But it wasn't, they didn't blow middle off by any means. So we want to see Alabama's offensive line kind of, if they can get a push against Texas. But, this team is still unproven. And Jalen Milroe knows that. And after the game, he's like, look, I have to improve. I have to improve on a lot of my game, and I have to be consistent. He was very humble, said all the right things. And of course, we asked him, like, you have family that are Texas fans? And he was like, yeah. And we're like, any immediate members of your family that are Texas fans? He's like, yeah. So Alabama, the team knows what's coming, and the fans are eager to get Texas fans over, because I think a lot of the fans were pissed off about going to Texas and the whole thing with like the band. And when the team ran off the field, I think they were like jarring at each other. So yeah, these are 2 huge brands in college football, and they want to get it going for sure.
Let me ask you a couple more before I let you get out of here. By the way, I've got Kyle Henderson from Bama Football. You can find him on YouTube. Once again, excellent YouTube channel that he has. Is really the model that we try to emulate. Kyle, I know Jalen is a question mark. And, and we can look on our side, on the Texas side, and we can say, okay, there's some offensive line can be a question mark at times. Not quite sure what to expect from the running back situation. You talked about some of the injuries. We'll find out something soon about C.J. Baxter, who started at running back, the freshman running back. We'll find out a little bit more about him today. DJ Campbell, a little bit more as well. But from that team, we know there's some question marks about Jalen. Are there any other question marks that you have that you say, okay, yeah, it's cool in week 1, but I really need to see it from these particular guys or this particular unit in week 2 against Texas for me to kind of check that box?
Sure. I think the wide receivers, we need to see a wide receiver really stand out and really become one of those rideouts that Alabama fans are accustomed to. Circle the name Amari Niblack. He's number 84. He's a tight end that looks to be more versatile than just your typical tight end that, plays as a wire hand in the dirt. I think he's somebody that you can split out. He's very fast. He can catch the football really well. Is he going to be one of those guys that Alabama can continue to see be a consistent performer at the wide receiver / tight end position? Malik Benson wasn't targeted a ton in week 1. He's a junior college transfer. We want to see some of that, high level play from those wide receivers. Now, they did catch the football, which was great. And you're like, oh, they're wide receivers. They're supposed to. No, all fall camp, it was like drop after drop. Even in that Texas game last year, there was a bunch of drops from Alabama, from the tight ends, from Cam Latu, from some of these wide receivers that are usually pretty good at catching the football, but they did that in week 1. So that's kind of something that we're tracking. On the defensive side of the ball, this is important, everyone. This is very, very important. Terrion Arnold. Can we see a high level consistency of play from him at corner? We know about Kool-Aid. Trey Amos is a transfer in that also plays at corner, but you know what Middle Tennessee did on the first play of the game? They attacked Terrion. They went right to him. And I think Sarkisian's going to do the same thing. Can he play at a high level of play in this big time game? Can he match up with, if it's him versus Mitchell or wherever they put Kool-Aid, they're going to attack him. So you want to see if Terrion Arnold is that high level corner that can play in a big time game against NFL type receivers 100%. So he did well, and he graded out well in Pro Football Focus. I know it's middle. It is what it is. Going into this game, I think you have to circle Terrion Arnold. And if he plays at a high level of play, that'll certainly be impactful for Alabama's secondary.
Last question, Kyle, I'll let you get out of here. Just kind of complete the thought for me, okay? If Texas wins this game, what would have happened in your estimation for them to have pulled it out? And if, on the flip side, if Bama wins this game, what would you have foreseen that potentially happened? So just kind of let me go in your head. If Texas wins this game, what happened successfully for them?
I think if Texas is able to win this game, it comes down to the defense was able to play opportunistic football by creating turnovers. How many interceptions did you have against Rice? Was it 3? I think I counted 3 against Rice.
Three turnovers.
Yeah, if you can create turnovers against Alabama and take the wind out of the sails against the offense and kind of make them start going to another quarterback or something like that, I think Texas certainly wins the game. So creating turnovers and getting some sort of pressure on Miller. I don't think they'll get pressure, but if they can create turnovers and come up with some interceptions, I think that would be a huge catalyst to this game. I think, 2 picks. Thank you. But opportunistic football on the defensive side of the ball. And then on the other side, I think it comes down to Alabama's defense as well. Getting pressure on Quinn again and again and again. Make him remember that last year's game and, that if that secondary comes with it. So I look to the defensive side because, there's a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball, but look, if I'm going into this game, I'm challenging Jalen Milroe to beat me throwing the football still. Even though he was super effective against middle, I'm like, I don't care. I want you to beat us again. You can't let him get outside. He's the fastest player on the field. I don't care who your fastest player is for Texas. He's faster than him, and he's stronger than him, and he's 230 pounds, and he'll make you miss. He's unbelievable, but make him challenge him to beat you. And if he can beat you through the air, Alabama wins that game. But if you can create turnovers and kind of get the momentum for Alabama, then I think Texas is able to come out on top. I would assume that the first, the team that wins this game is scoring around 31 points. I haven't even checked. What's the over-under in this game? It's like,
do you have it, Aaron? I mean, yeah, Aaron will look it up. Our producer will look it up and find it for you. I
would say like 60, right? And I'd probably take the over in that one. So yeah, I would assume that it's a, I don't know, 30, 38, 31, a 35, 31, something like that. That's kind of what I'm looking at.
Okay, I was going to let you go, but unfortunately unfortunately for you, 52.5, by the way. I got some super chats came in, and I know how you respect super chats, Kyle. I know how you love super chats. So Benji had a question.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because Benji asked a question for Tom G, and Tom G asks a question for Benji. So really interesting how you guys are working here in the chat. Benji wants to know about the linebacker play. Okay, go back to the first one, Aaron. Go back to the first one that you had up there. Okay, Benji wants to know about it. He's asking about just go about the linebacker play.
Yeah.
What you can say about that, and then the second one will be basically, even though it's for me, I want you to answer it. Does it help Texas to go up tempo? So start with the linebacker one, and then maybe Texas going up tempo.
All right. What's up, JD? I see you in the comment box. Thank you very much for the support. And all the Texas fans, too. We appreciate you guys. Safe travels to Austin. Please write this down. If you're coming to the game here in Tuscaloosa, there's a place I want you guys to eat at. There's plenty of spots to go, but the place is called Antojitos, okay? It's this Mexican restaurant over here in Tuscaloosa. The owners are from Mexico City. I don't have any affiliation with them other than the fact that I love to go and eat food over there when I can. So it's a little hidden spot. It's called Antojitos. I'll send Anwar the link so he can put where to get some grub at.
Spell it. Come on now. Help us out. Spell it?
Antojitos is like Antios or something like that. Yeah. So I'll look it up while I answer this next question on in fact, they just followed me on Instagram too.
Nice.
Yeah, so maybe I'll get a free plate. Okay. Here we go. This is it. Antojitos.
Now, just so you know, we would have never guessed that. Just so you're clear, Kyle. There's very few people in this chat who watching who would have guessed that. So thank you.
I got you.
We'll go ahead and check that one out.
The linebacker play. Okay, so your interior linebackers, Mr. Kyle Henderson on Instagram. The interior linebackers, Deontay Lawson, fantastic. He played a lot last year. He's very talented. He played extremely well last game. Respect his game. Like, he's an NFL level player, and he's going to be all over. He's a great tackler. He can put pressure on the quarterback, good in space. Like, he's phenomenal. Trez Marshall is your other inside linebacker, transferred over from Georgia. Still need to see a little bit more from him, but he had a really strong fall camp. And then you also have Jahad Campbell, who had his knee scoped about 14 days before practice during fall camp, but he's probable. Let's list him on the injury report as well. He's out of the IMG Academy. And then you guys remember Kendrick Blackshire? Remember Kendrick Blackshire from Texas? Got to see him play against Middle. He wraps up a guy from Middle last week and just literally like rips the ball out. So it was good to see him. Outside linebackers are their strength. Dallas Turner, who's a top 10 pick. You guys remember him. We talked about that earlier in the show. We also have Quandarius Robinson, who's very athletic, long, lanky arms, kind of that NFL prototype at the outside edge position. And then you have Chris Broswell, another former 5-star. So the edge rushers are 5-stars. They're coming with it. They can move on side and stunts. They can beat you on the outside. They're coming for Quinn. I promise you, those guys are going to play a pivotal role in this game. If they can, like I was telling Anwar, if they can get to the quarterback, then they probably win this game because they are that effective and they have a lot of athleticism.
As far as going up tempo, last one. As far as going up tempo, is that a benefit for Texas against Bama on the road?
Yeah, 100%. I think up-tempo offense, you gotta keep it going. Limit the amount of times that you can substitute in and out. Go heavy. If you can, that's another way that you keep momentum, right? Is if you make plays and you can move it down the field in short chunks, and then hit you over top with some of those dynamic weapons. But yeah, I think you got to go all gas, no brakes for sure.
All right. Kyle, man, I absolutely appreciate you. Kyle Henderson from Bama football. Listen, Texas is not only going to face this team this week, obviously Texas is going into the SEC. So you're going to want to know about the big dogs. You want to know what they're doing. If you wanted to get some insight on Alabama and everything, Kyle will have you covered all week long. Kyle, tell everyone how to follow you, not only on the YouTube channel, on social media. Give them all the socials for us, Kyle.
All right, got you. So Bama football on YouTube. You can just type in Bama football on YouTube. Kyle Henderson, pop right up. Just hit 90,000 subscribers, which is amazing. On Instagram, Mr. Kyle Henderson. And on Twitter, I think I'm Bama YouTube or something like that. I don't tweet my life away. If I tweet, it's significant. That's it. But yeah, all the coverage back at Bama football on YouTube. Anwar, I respect your work. Ever since Catch hired you, and you've been linked up with Orange Bloods, you've been a home run hire. You're a classy dude. I love what you're doing with the channel. You have a great personality, and most importantly, you have a great aura about you. I respect your work, and I think you're doing a fantastic job. Keep doing your thing. Blessings your way. When you come out to Tuscaloosa, if you need anything, take care of you 100%. Food, room, whatever you need, I got you.
That's love. Thank you, Kyle. I'm going to actually just save this and play that for myself every morning to make myself feel good. Kyle Henderson, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I will see you at the game, right? I'll see you on Saturday.
Absolutely, man. It's going to be packed up there, but we'll be up there together.
All right, brother. If you need me at all this week, I'll be around. So just let me know. All right.
100%.
Kyle Henderson from Bama football. Thank you so much. That was a fantastic interview.